A 7-year-old boy can tell the total number of matches on a table just by looking at them.
571개요.
47만 2,908은
1882만 4,514요.
Little did he know that he could count faster than a calculator. But such a gifted genius made his father think he was a monster, because he overheard his son secretly burying dead animals. Although the son explained that the animals were already dead when he saw them, it didn't take long to learn from Bawana that many abused animals had recently appeared, making the father, who was a criminal psychologist, very worried. That day while he was working, his son saw the photos of the criminals he was studying and asked a question that horrified him: why shouldn't people hurt others? This is because the murderer, Lee Junyoung, asked him the same question, and it was the motive for his murder. The next day, Lee Hyun realizes that his father's briefcase is not with him, and no one answers when he calls, so he personally takes the briefcase and sends it to the police station. But he inadvertently meets Lee Junyoung, but he doesn't feel scared. Instead he chats with the other person. When his father returns, he sees the two exchanging secrets, and he rushes in and pulls Lee Hyun away, and Lee Junyoung's next words scare him even more, saying that Lee Hyun looks so much like him when he was a child. When his father questions him about what he told his son, Lee Junyoung asks him why he's so afraid of his son.
나랑 같은 괴물이 되진 않을까?
Enraged by the revelation of his thoughts, the father raises his hand and knocks him to the ground. When he went back, he accidentally saw his son's drawing book and realized that the drawings in it were either about arson or animal cruelty, and thought to himself, isn't this typical of a perverted childhood? So he found his younger brother Lee Ming to inquire. When he got a definite answer, the father was so distressed that he wrote the line that his son regarded as a monster in his notebook, only to be seen by Lee Hyun, which made him feel a little sad. In order to prevent his son from turning into a murderous monster, his father went so far as to lock Lee Hyun in the basement and never be able to contact the outside world. Lee Hyun's tears welled up in his eyes and he questioned his father why he did this to him. He didn't understand what he did wrong. A 7-year-old boy can tell the exact total number of matches just by looking at the matches on the table.
571개요.
47만 2,908은
1882만 4,514요.
But this caused his father so much pain that he wrote the line that his son regarded as a monster in his notebook, only to be seen by Lee Hyun, which made him feel a little sad. In order to prevent his son from becoming a monster like a murderer, the father went so far as to lock Lee Hyun in the basement, never to be exposed to the outside world again. Lee Hyun's tears welled up in his eyes and questioned why his father did this to him. He didn't understand what he did wrong. Still, he stays in the basement and learns under his father's tutelage. On the other hand, the murderer is ready to escape from prison, picking up the glass piece hidden in the book and wiping it on his neck. So scared that the prison guards rushed forward to probe and found that there was no pulse, immediately called an ambulance to send to the hospital to rescue. But the strange thing is, Lee Junyoung's bleeding is very rare. At this time, another ambulance appeared outside. It turned out that the suicide was just an illusion, and Lee Junyoung was born with one side of his carotid artery not beating. He escapes from prison and finds his way to Lee Hyun's house, where his father knows the visitors are up to no good. The sound of fighting attracts Lee Hyun from the basement and fights to break down the door to ask what's going on, while his brother is woken up and opens the door to find his father fighting the bad guy. It seems as if he recognizes the psychopathic murderer, and without saying a word, he rolls out the window and escapes. When Lee Hyun came out, his father had collapsed in a pool of blood, and he ran out to look for his brother, but accidentally fell. The shock was so great that he lost the memory of that day and was adopted by his father's best friend. 20 years passed in a flash, and when he grew up, Lee Hyun became a writer of crime novels. That day, he receives an anonymous email with information about a serial murder case. An oil painting inside catches his attention and he immediately calls his assistant to book a ticket back to his home country. When he gets off the plane, he sees a variety of patterns that give him an idea to deduce that the two sets of strange patterns left behind by the murderer are exactly a set of coordinate locations. He then arrives at the scene of the second murder, and the criminal police team happens to arrive, thinking that Lee Hyun is the newly appointed captain, only to see him combine the two cases and do an analysis, making the police officers admire him. But it was the real captain who came, and when he indicated his identity, the others were baffled. When they turn their heads, Lee Hyun is long gone. He immediately chases him out, and Lee Hyun has just slipped away in a cab, but when he sees that the vigilante is persistent in catching up, Lee Hyun deliberately tells the driver to drive slower, and then when the vigilante is close to catching up, he tells the driver to speed up again, and just hangs around and plays with him all the time. When came to a turn, the security head into Lee Hsien's arms, without saying anything to him handcuffed, brought back to the interrogation room for questioning. Lee Hyun assumes it's an email sent to him by the police, so he heads back immediately. Coming to the scene of the crime, they also found out that Lee Hyun's identity was a criminal psychologist in the US and he was still on the plane when the crime happened, so the police had to let him go. Lee Hyun returns to his childhood home and takes out his long-hidden key, remembering the image of living with his father and brother, so he puts on an apron and cleans the house as he did when he was a child. At this time, he received a call from Jian of the criminal police team. It turns out that he wants to ask him to assist in investigating the case, but I didn't realize that Lee Hyun refused her without saying a word, so Jian had to find the door himself, and came to Lee Hyun's university lectures, waving to greet him, but he was ignored, and she slipped down the stairs with his chair by accident. It turns out that Ji-young made a military order to definitely ask Lee Hyun to assist in solving the case. While chatting with forensic scientist Lee Jun-ho, he received information that Lee Hyun went to the murder scene, and forensic scientist Lee Jun-ho was interested in this highly intelligent professor. On the other hand, Lee Hyun is at the murder scene but accidentally finds his brother's exclusive signature.
나 이걸로 할래, 형아.
설마 미니가 정말 살아있는 건가? 아니면 미니를 아는 사람?
When Ji-yeon arrives, Lee Hyun has already gone to the gallery and found his American classmate, Bone, to help him, but it's too difficult to investigate with just a painting that's not famous, and Lee Hyun justifiably tells the other side to look harder in order to do so. Ji-yeon goes straight to Lee Hyun's lecture site and experiences a large-scale social death scene. Ji-yeon humbly begs for help and Lee Hyun asks her to tell him why she recognizes him first. Ji-yeon can only say that she's a fan of Lee Hyun's, and Lee Hyun expresses his bemusement, but still helps Ji-yeon analyze the case. The first point is that there were purple flowers at the scene. Purple flowers represent melancholy and death, and both victims received purple flowers before. Second, the two deaths are different. The first body is intact while the second has signs of abuse. It's because the second one just cut her hair, which means that the murderer is targeting the same type of women. 3. The first scene left a sign. The second scene will certainly also have, as long as we find the sign can know the exact location. 4. As long as we find the common living circle of the two girls, we can find the next target of the murderer. Soon enough, Ji-yeon looked for the code words left by the murderer, and the genius Lee Hyun immediately found the destination, and on the other side, his colleagues also found the suspected murderer's target, who just happened to be on vacation today.